Farming Certus Quartz can be really annoying. That's why I spent the past couple hours devising this overly complicated machine to auto farm it, which I'm going to simplify and show you how to create. To prove how easy it is, I'm going to use only the items in this ME system as well as the system itself and go into survival mode just to build it out and show you how to make it as well. Now, the one thing that may seem weird in this build list, these enchanting books, one for Fortune 3, one for Silk Touch. And the reason I've got them in there is you can enchant these annihilation planes to give them those features. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Make sure both of them are enchanted. It's really important that one is Silk Touch, one is Fortune, and you make sure that you know which is different. The Fortune, honestly, later on won't be as important. It's still really nice to have, but the Silk Touch you need to have. So moving from there, we really just want to start mimicking this system, and there's no better place to start than just setting up an area where you're gonna have these crystals growing. Now, I'm just gonna place these over here. The Certus Quartz is gonna be right in this spot between all of these crystal growth chambers. And we wanna make sure that they're nice and set up to encourage that crystal growth. So there's going to be a little digging involved. I'm going to create a bit of a basement here. There we go. That gives me good access to the underneath of all of these growth chambers. And the reason I want that is because I'm going to run these red cables down here. And I chose red to indicate power. And that's all these are going to do. They're not going to carry any data. They're only power cables. Now I've got a power cable coming out to go to the ME system, and I'll connect that later. But I want to set up those formation planes, those that are going to be placing the blocks, the Certus Quartz, in order to grow the crystals off of. So to start with those, I'm going to indicate that tier with the, let's go with the blue cables, because I like to think of blue as a good color for placing or creation. Now that I've got those down here, and I did have to give myself an extra one. I only gave myself the materials to do one of these, but the reason I'm going to show the design as it is because it's easily stackable on and on sideways. I'm only showing the first one mainly. So we've got the formation down here. Now I can bring these out and connect them. But in order to bring them into the system and have them behave in the way we want them to, we have to pull a couple of weird tricks. Mainly being that formation planes will only place blocks as soon as they become a part of the inventory, which means we need to separate the inventory from the ME system, otherwise it'll just clog up and not know to place anything. We also need to filter. So for that, I'm going to do an ME interface, because you can see here that it does show you can filter and have a separated inventory. Now in here, I'm going to filter for Flawed budding Certus Quartz, but then I also want to pull it from the system. So in order to do that, we're going to need a export bus. It seems weird because it feels like we're importing into the system, but it's wrong. We're actually exporting from the ME terminal. We're going to do a Flawed budding Certus Quartz in there once again. Now if I place, once I connect that up, and you will note another weird aspect of this, power does not transition from this light blue cable across the bus and the interface to this side. Otherwise, these would be lit up right on these little spots. So we need to get power over to this side. That's nice and easy. Given that these cables are right here, I'm going to use a quartz fiber, which will connect two types of color cable without sharing information, only power. So if I do that right there, the power line is now connected to the blue information line. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring that over to this system. And we can see these lines are now, it did connect to my thing right here, which we didn't want, because now that is an unfiltered line. I'm gonna quartz fiber just to make sure it's separated. Perfect. And that's why I love these smart cables, is you can see lines form on these little black lines in their color to show how many channels are taken up, because each one of these cables, the thin ones, can only take 8 channels before they are just out. So that's why it also helps separating out your lines like this. See, now you can see 3 lines indicated on this smart cable, 1 for each formation plane. That brings us up to 2, and then also 1 for this bus. So that adds up perfectly. So now when an item comes in from our storage bay here, it's going to be a flawed crystal. It's going to come in here, going to get filtered and then placed. So now both filters are on. Let me go place some in here. And perfect. Although now I kind of want to disconnect that. That's working a little too well, because now that's going to make things difficult to build. So I'm going to pull that crystal back out and try and get rid of these. So now we have a system to automatically create and replace the flawless crystal, but not to destroy. And that is also surprisingly easy to do. We just want those formation planes like we saw earlier. So I'm going to start with the bottom formation plane, and we are going to bring that up here. And that's nice and easy to do. Now, remember, it's very important, the difference between the Silk Touch and the Fortune one. I'm going to cheat here. Even though I said I was showing how to build just one, I do want to build 2 side by side like I did over there. So the one that's going to be right here, since it is the block, we want it to be the Silk Touch. So we are going to just place the Silk Touch Annihilation plane here. And that will destroy, currently it will destroy any block that's placed here. Let me even try with dirt. It is unpowered, so let me power that as well. And then also connect it to the drive, I suppose. So it'll just Silk Touch that dirt and suck it up into the system as quick as possible. We don't want it to do that. We don't want it to do that. So I'm gonna break this line here. We need to find a way to filter it so that it only detects a certain type of block being placed there in order to destroy it. So we're gonna bring that off here and then place a nice barrel right there. Easy peasy. Doesn't automatically connect to the barrel. As we know, we need to import export bus, or in this case, I'm going to use a storage bus. Storage bus works really well for this, especially for the filtering. And I'm not going to put flawed budding Certus Quartz there. Instead, I'm going to do just a normal Certus Quartz block. There we go. Now that I've got a Certus Quartz block in there, it'll only detect and break Certus Quartz blocks that are here. Now that may seem counterintuitive since you are placing Certus here and then destroying it immediately, but when it gets placed, it's that flawed Certus Quartz budding block, and as it buds, each time it buds, it may decay until it eventually decays to its very base form that can't create any more crystals, that basic Certus block, and that's when we want to pull it out and place a new fresh one. So in this case, now it'll pull out the old block and place it here. But now we also want to extract the crystal that'll grow on top of that budding block. And to do that, we're going to grab a white line here, place it up, and also feed it over to the barrel. Now this is where our annihilation planes with fortune are going to come in, because we want that fortune enchantment when we break those crystals in order to get even more crystals out of it. Now you can see this is offline as well. So once again, like I did there, I brought the power up the chain. I'm going to quartz fiber it right here. Now my white line is powered, but if you really want to wait until the crystal's fully grown and not breaking in that early stage, you got to filter that as well. Otherwise, if you break it in the early stage, all you'll get is Certus Quartz dust, which is also fine, honestly. Certus Quartz dust is totally okay if you want that and you've got a system to handle it. I personally prefer to wait until my Certus Quartz is fully grown so that I get it in the natural state. And so for that reason, I'm also going to storage bus. That's why I've got this barrel here. Otherwise, I can just feed these both together over in there and call it a day. So storage bus, once again, I need a piece of actual Certus Quartz in order to create that filter. And now coming back over here, I put it in that filter. Now it'll only break blocks that can create that Certus Quartz. And it's active, perfect. These both over here. Now I said I wasn't gonna use any extra blocks. I am also spawning in these yellow cables. I could continue on with white or orange if I wanted to, but for the sake of the video, I want to show that this is technically a different line than these two. So I need to pull from this barrel in order to get it into the system. The only reason I had this barrel was so that these filters could both be applied in the same spot. Technically, you could just pull them all the way over here. I'm not going to do that for a reason I will show in a little bit here. Now, I just need an import bus because you're importing back into the system, right? So now that's on. We've got power to both of these buses, power to this, and the whole system. Now what's next is simply to get some quartz in there. So if I come over here and I put in a couple of flawed budding Certus Quartz crystals, they drain from here. And I heard that sound, one placed. Hopefully this other will get placed here in a sec. And it's already growing. Granted, my random tick speed is set high so that it grows quickly for the video purposes. This will take a while, but it's nice to have it automated so you don't need to babysit. Perfect. As soon as it grew to its maximum ability, it broke. It'll come to this barrel right here, and you see it draining from the barrel because it's coming to the ME system right there. Perfect. And that's exactly what we want. And see, it already placed another crystal over here. If I really wanted to scale this up, I would just throw in as much flawed Certus Quartz as I could in there and just let it go. So we're gonna go flawed budding Certus Quartz, toss it in there, and see, now it's gonna place down that line and just keep grinding through. However, this is only so effective. You still have to supply that chain of flawed Certus Quartz manually to the system, which can be annoying, having to go back and charge it. So that's where my whole second loop of the build over there came in. I'm going to show you now how to create an auto crafting system in order to automatically charge your quartz and create flawed Certus Quartz so that you don't have to keep doing it on your own. Let's go into that now. Now, usually to create that flawed budding Certus Quartz, you need to have the base Certus Quartz block, which does come out of there like we saw before, and 3 quartz crystals. Now you need to charge them, and doing that by hand can be really annoying. You gotta put them into the charger, turn the hand crank a whole bunch, and then eventually they'll charge. But it's such a hassle, even with the crank. Doing it manually just sucks. I mean, here, look. I'm gonna go to creative and even get a creative energy cell just to charge this. And you'll see it still takes a minute. There we go. I finally got one, and I need 3. Let me just keep it going. Got another, and a third, which is all well and good. Now I've got 3 charged Certus Quartz, but I'm not even done because I still don't have a budding block. I gotta drop all of those in there along with my block, and it'll charge it up through each layer, and then bam, now I finally have a flawed budding Certus Quartz. Doing that by hand is gonna suck. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna create the system to do it automatically. I'm gonna dump that Certus block in there and then come here and just reset my inventory. Completely clear house. and then switch back to survival. This next section, here's what I'm going to use. Now I chose a bunch of different colors again to show that everything's different. I'm going to keep using the system of red being powered. Once I've got everything out of here, and dang, you can already see that crystal farm is going crazy. I already have 289 Certus Quartz crystals, but I'm starting to get a pile up of blocks and I'm running low on my stockpile of budding crystals as well. First little thing I'm going to do is I'm going to upgrade a very small feature on my existing network. I have this terminal here already. It's great, but I want this pattern encoding terminal. For now, I'm also going to dump my blink patterns there. What we need is a co-processing unit and crafting storage. Put them together and you've got this. The most basic crafting computer. Eventually we'll need smarter, but for now this will do very, very simply. Coming off from here, the first thing I want to make personally is my charger. I'm going to come in to here and place my charger, but things started connecting to it a little too quickly. I don't like that. I also like it facing this way. That's not only providing power, but that's providing information, and I don't even know what information it could be providing. That scares me a little bit. So the first thing I want is one of these pattern recognizers, and then an import bus. Remember, import means it's pulling into the ME system, not into whatever it's attaching to. It's pulling into your system. We're going to toss that on the bottom there. So whatever it creates, it pulls out, and then put this pattern recognizer in there. This is going to act like the export bus. It's going to pull into there, but only what I tell it to, based on a very specific pattern. Now, what I want going out is going to be charged crystals. Unfortunately, I would have to manually do this at one point, but I can just toss that in there. Now it's filtered to know, pull those out. But now what do I do here? This looks new. I need to create a pattern so that it knows to only craft what I tell it to. And this is going to be really, really kind of awkward at first. But what I want is to come over here to this terminal. And you can see here, this is the pattern encoding terminal. I've got these options on the left. I can do a basic crafting pattern or processing. Since it's not just a standard 3x3 grid for the charger, it acts more like a furnace might. You're gonna want to go over to the processing, and in that, what we get out of it, we're hoping to get a single charged Certus Quartz crystal. But what we're putting in, a single non-charged Certus Quartz crystal. Easy enough. We can write that pattern down and then come over here and toss it into here. And what I like about these patterns is it looks like this. You'd have to read it. If you collect a bunch of patterns, that's one thing. If you hit shift though, you can see what it's gonna make, which is nice and simple. Now I've got that coming out. I am, however, going to also add up a little here. But that's again charging information. I just want electric charge to power this machine. So we are going to, oh, that didn't like it. We're gonna break all of that and try once more. There we go. All right, one on top, bring this over, bam, now it's charged. Now in here, I should be able to create charged crystals. I hit 10, hit start. It's gonna think about it. I can see in this crafting computer, it's processing. And right here, you can watch as it automatically crafts these. And these are stackable. You can even come down the chain if that you find that your process isn't creating them fast enough. You can just make more chargers and more of these patterns and it'll know what to do. For now, one is totally enough for me. So I'm gonna come down here. I have the charged crystals. How do I get them into the water and charge the blocks as well? That's where this little ring comes in, and it's a little complicated. So we are just gonna take it one step at a time. First thing we're gonna look at, I want a place to put my water. I'm gonna dig this out. We are gonna surround it with glass to assume this is where the water's going. I need to connect a bunch of weird stuff here. Now, because of the way things work, I need my annihilation plane on top, just because, and it's not going to break in this case, it's going to pick up the items and pull them into the system. But we're going to use the barrel again, like before, to make sure we are only picking up the correct things. I like to use purple because annihilation seems very purpley. We're going to bring it over to this barrel here. And once again, use that storage bus so that it knows this only is what we're going to pick up. Since we only want to pick up flawed crystals, nothing else. So now that side is done. It's not powered though, so I'll have to provide power later on. The next step is going to be underneath. We need to have our formation. Now I'm also going to place a piece of dirt there just so we can make sure we get our formation plane correct. And bingo. Let's go with cyan on this one. Like I said before, I just really like the blue colors when representing the formation planes. Fill this in a little bit because since there's going to be water here, last thing we want is for it to be spilling out everywhere. So now we've got the formation plane underneath here connected up. But that's only so much of the problem that we need to solve. We need to figure out how do we get items to drop specifically. Like before, you can filter these where Certus crystals, and you can hit here. Instead of placing blocks, it's going to drop it as an item. I once again need to get a basic block for filtering purposes, and that's just going to be the normal Certus block. Once here, we can put that in there. Now it's going to know drop only Certus blocks and charge Certus Quartz crystals in there. But like before, it needs that interface in order to have an inventory to pull from. Same thing, I'm going to filter crystals and the blocks. But now we also need the recipe. Once again, I'm going to do a pattern encoder. Slap that on there. Now we need to encode a pattern. We'll do that in a second. Let's connect this all up. I'm going to pull this all the way over here. Once again, we have the issue of power, but I'm going to represent only what I'm connecting with power through here. Technically, you could just do a black chain right there and do one single quartz fiber to really indicate that this is what is carrying power, no information, just for purposes of the channel. I'm going to show that with these fibers. Same over here. You could get away with only using a single one, but I really want to make sure no information is shared between these and that I'm indicating that that is my power line. So perfect. We can see here that some of these are showing up on the black already. Now, one thing I'm missing is my water bucket. You just drop some water there. Notice that dirt floats. That's why we're doing the annihilation plane on top, is because whatever is placed in there is going to float up to the top for us there. I do need to put a pattern here. So what pattern are we going to create? Remember before how it was 3 charged quartz and 1 single block will result in a flawed? Well, that's what we need to put here, and it needs to be exact. If you put any more or less than 3 and 1 here, it just won't know what to do and it will freeze up and freak out. Now that I've got that, I can come over here, slap that in there. Perfect. Now it should know, and this is working, it should know that that is how we can create flawed budding quartz. Test it. I'm going to put 10 in there. Still going to need to create 20 more Certus Quartz, so hopefully it can charge it up. So you can see it start by charging there, and then it's also working over here. It's already dropping the blocks in there along with their necessary charging quartz. As soon as they charge up, they get sucked up by the annihilation and placed in this barrel. Except now we've got that problem where nothing from the barrel is getting put into the main ME system. So we need that import bus like before. Now it's going to get sucked out. And perfect. And it should show here. It's crafting away. Now that's pretty neat and all, but what if we need to create more basic Certus Quartz blocks? Then what? I mean, we could manually create them in here by just taking these out, but why not have the system do that for us as well, since we already have an auto crafter anyway. It's so easy. And I'm just gonna honestly bring this out over here, bring it up, and oh my goodness, I'm realizing I can't fly. Build up here. I need a pattern recognizer as always, otherwise how is it going to know to create anything? And then I'm going to put these molecular assemblers around on all edges. Oh, I fell. These basically act as crafting tables, well, automatic for the system. So now it's got 5 places to craft things. However, pattern recognizer, it needs to know how to craft. But we were on processing before. Crafting is what we go to for these, since it's just a simple crafting recipe and it automatically knows what we're trying to craft, which makes it even nicer. Now I've created that encoding pattern. Shift, yep, it's to create a normal Certus Quartz block. I can dump it in there. Now that I've got a ton of Certus Quartz stored up from this machine, why not just overflow the machine? So if I go to the craftable view, I have a recipe for flawed budding quartz, charged quartz crystals, and then just the normal block. So I'm going to hit 100 on there just to really overpower it real quick. You can see up there, each of these is going crazy trying to build as many of them as I can. And look in here, it's going quick. It's actually already done. That's 100 blocks made. If I come to the full view, I already have 100 blocks just sitting here, which again makes it nice and simple because now I can do 100 more flawed, and now it's nice and easy. If I want more, this is already duplicating everything I put into it. I'm creating more charged quartz. I'm going to create more flawed and just keep dumping it in there. And when I need some from my project, further develop this ME system, I have it readily available right over here, all in this one system. Now, if you want to just do a one hit to build, you can expand this crafting computer so that it can handle multiple things at once. Grab another co-processing unit, and then more of these crafting storages, and it doesn't have to be just 1K, you can also do 4 more. Really, in this level of building that you're going to do here, it's not going to be super necessary. But I gave it another 2 co-processors so it can craft multiple things at once, and then more storage so that it can craft a higher count of items. There we go. So now if I want to skip that Certus Quartz and just go direct to the flawed, I could say create 1,000. No, maybe not. I don't have enough. Let's say create 200 or 100. There we go. It's got enough. It says it's going to have to craft both of these, but now it's got the processing power to do so. In a bigger ME system, I would definitely recommend multiple processors, some for these big jobs and then a couple more for the small jobs, since there are going to be just a bunch of really small jobs to do. And remember, this is only for crafting these crystals. You could do automatic crafting for anything you really wanted, any recipe that you're using a lot. If you're doing industrial craft and you've got just a bunch of raw supplies, you could have a lot of those circuits just auto craft for you through your ME system, and that's what I use mine a lot for. But in order to build up the ME system, this is a great tool to get you the quartz you need so that you can continue experimenting like I've been and be on your way to truly building your own supercomputer.